The film opens with the quote, "Love your destiny, even though it is cruel." The film, which is based on a true story, opens with a short narration of a Kevin Pasha, nicknamed Baby Bandito. Kevin was born in Santiago, Chile. He was born a poor young man, yet he turned into the mastermind of the great robberies throughout the century. The story begins when Kevin is still at university. Coming home from college, Kevin loves skateboarding with his best friend named Panda. Panda was filming Kevin showing off his skateboarding skills, but when it was Kevin's turn to film Panda, he was distracted by a beautiful girl named Genesis. Suddenly, a man stole Genesis' bag. Kevin immediately jumps into action to chase the man who stole Genesis' bag. The perpetrator managed to escape, but Genesis' bag was found again. Since then, Kevin and Genesis got acquainted because of the love vibe in his heart. Kevin did not hesitate to ask Genesis for her cell phone number. After getting the girl's number, Kevin couldn't stop smiling. Moving on to the slaughterhouse, there was a blonde man we can call Anton. Not long after came the son of a gangster boss named Greyhounds. Greyhounds told Anton that he had received information from Gerardo and Franco about the arrival of a money truck carrying 1 billion pesos at the airport in the next 10 days. It turns out that they are not ordinary gangsters. They are both part of a professional robbery group. Kevin is a poor young man who lives with his mother Anna and his grandmother. That night, Anna gave money for Kevin's tuition fees. Suddenly, some corrupt police came forcing Anna to give money from drug sales, or Anna would be arrested. It turns out that to support her family, Anna was forced being a drug seller. Now, all of Anna's money was taken away, including the money to pay Kevin's education. It is unclear where Kevin's father is, but Anna says that she does not want Kevin to suffer the same fate as his father. Unlike Panda, Panda's parents operate a game zone business that pays for itself. Panda secretly has a crush on a woman who likes to paint walls, Nydia. That night, riding Panda's old motorcycle, they went to Genesis' birthday party held at a luxury hotel. Kevin, who is in love with Genesis, invites her to dance. Suddenly, Genesis' boyfriend, Ignacio, appears and immediately hits Kevin in the face. Genesis' mother breaks up their fight, then treats the injury on Kevin's lip, while warning Kevin to stay away from his daughter, but Kevin does not care about the woman's warning. Back to the gangster group, an airport officer named Gerardo is caught because he has dared to ask for an advance for a robbery plan that has not yet been carried out. It was at this time that the figure of the Greyhound's father, a brutal gangster boss, was immediately angry after learning that Gerardo dared to ask for rations even though the robbery had not been carried out. Using a crowbar, Gerardo was beaten to death. After that, Gerardo's body was put into a meat grinder. That afternoon, Genesis took Kevin to a gathering place for skateboarding kids. The two of them officially became lovers. Panda was quite upset waiting for his best friend who came late because he was in love. While waiting for Panda to buy food, while skateboarding, Kevin accidentally grazed Greyhound's car. Because he did not accept Kevin's mistake, Greyhounds immediately took his skateboard. Even Anton pointed a gun at Kevin. After that, they drive the car and drive away. Not accepting that his skateboard was taken away, Kevin secretly climbed on top of their car. Seeing his best friend running after the car, Panda immediately followed on a motorcycle. Arriving at the gangster's base, Kevin climbed through the window to enter the base. He was surprised by Panda that suddenly appeared behind him. His best friend is unable to fit inside the small window because his stomach is too big. After finding his skateboard, Kevin accidentally saw money and a small book containing the robbery plan of the century with a value of 1 billion pesos. Kevin immediately steals the book, but he is forced to hide first because he hears the gangster boss of his men coming to talk about the robbery plan. From them, Kevin hid under a table until he heard that a money truck would be arriving at the airport to refill the ATM before the festival. In the book, Kevin sees an example of an identity card that can be used to pass through security, including the code to open access to the airport. Once the conditions are safe, Kevin immediately leaves the slaughterhouse. At home, Kevin sees his mother paying off debts to drug dealers with her jewelry. Kevin immediately gives her the money he stole, but Anna refuses because she doesn't want Kevin to become a thief. At his base, Greyhound began searching in panic for his notebook that suddenly disappeared along with Kevin's skateboard. Meanwhile, at his house, Kevin holds the notebook and starts thinking about the robbery plan he heard about. It was at this moment that Kevin began to think about becoming a robber. Moreover, the access code to get into the hangar is in the book. Above his room, Kevin made the words, "No fame, no glory," which motivated Kevin to commit his first robbery. Kevin immediately went to his father in jail to ask for his help, so that Kevin could meet with Pantera. Here it was revealed that Kevin's father, Pedro, was in jail. Knowing that his father was an ex-robber, he was sure that his father would help. Before that, Pedro warned Kevin of all the risks he would take, including being thrown into jail. But because Kevin's determination was so strong, he took Panda to meet a professional robber, a friend of Kevin's father named Pantera. Kevin calmly invited Pantera to work together to rob 1 billion pesos at the airport. At the headquarters, Greyhound was looking at the CCTV when Kevin stole his notebook. At Kevin's usual place to play sketchboards, he saw Grey hunting him. So quickly Kevin put a small notebook into the Genesis bag. Then he ran away when Greyhound saw him. Once it was safe and he got away from Greyhound, Kevin was going to retrieve the book. But Genesis was disappointed because Kevin lied. Kevin claimed to be involved in a fight with a Greyhound, even though Genesis had already read the book. Kevin didn't want to tell Genesis about his robbery plan and asked her to trust him. While Kevin was relaxing in Panda's game zone, a woman walked in, threw her bag at them, and asked them to keep the bag. The girl named Mystica turned out to be an armed robber who was a master of disguise and carried out the action alone, when 2 policemen came looking for her. Mystica told Panda and Kevin to look after her bag. Curious about the contents of the bag, they both secretly checked Mystica's bag. They immediately saw a gun and a divination card that reads the Wheel of Fortune. While Greyhound came to a used car lot to see the car he ordered from an old man named Lionel. Greyhounds will come back to pick it up after Lionel prepares the vehicle registration and car papers he wants. Pantera actually refused to rob, but Kevin kept persuading him, especially since he knew Kevin's father deliberately sacrificed so that Pantera could live freely. But in the end, Pantera melted after knowing Kevin's mother was forced to become a drug dealer to support the family. Needing additional manpower and weapons, Panda had the idea to recruit Mystica. So they went to Mystica's hideout. Mystica was wary of them at first, but when they saw the arrival of Pantera, who were already famous for their work as robbers, Mystica let them in. Kevin told Mystica the purpose of their arrival to invite her to join his robbery plan. Mystica had refused because she did not trust men. Mystica was surprised to hear that the amount of robbery they were going to do was 1 billion pesos. Kevin asked Mystica to use her divination card, and Mystica had to go along if the card said good things. But Mystica can refuse if the card foretells bad things. It turns out that the card shows a picture of a rising sun with a smile. Just then, Mystica shows them her collection of heavy weaponry. As a veteran professional robber, Pantera shares a knowledge to uphold the principles of a robber in keeping personal secrets. For example, Mystica must hide the tattoo on her arm, then he doesn't like Kevin wearing a piercing in his ear. It was Kevin's turn to explain about the truck carrying 1 billion pesos from the central bank to the Santiago airport in hangar number 19. The truck would wait for the plane to refuel for 20 minutes, after which the plane would take the money north. Their plan was to take the truck to the next hangar, hangar 18 to be precise, with their IDs and access codes. Kevin was confident that they would pass the checkpoint, then they would ambush the officer carrying the money, then escape through the east door. The team only had 3 minutes to carry out the action, before the police arrived at the airport. For the van problem, Kevin already had a plan. Because it was his first time holding a gun, Kevin was taught strictly and how to hold a gun properly. Various supporting equipment, up to nails to immobilize police cars, have been prepared by this robber flock. Even special masks have been prepared by pandas to disguise their faces. Somewhere else, Ignacio deliberately gave a lot of things to Genesis' materialistic mother so that the mother would allow Ignacio to take Genesis on holiday to New Zealand, but Genesis' heart could not be separated from Kevin. After getting information, Greyhound came to Panda's shop just as he was making an entry pass to the airport. Greyhound showed Kevin's photo on his mobile phone to frighten Panda, but Panda still claimed not to know Kevin. After the Greyhound left the shop, Panda immediately contacted Kevin. But because Kevin couldn't be reached, Panda called Genesis. The girl was also worried about the safety of Kevin, who could be killed at the hands of that man. It turns out that Kevin came to Lionel's car workshop and said he was going to pick up the van his uncle had ordered. When she returned home, Anna was surprised by the presence of a man at gun. At the same time, Panda came to Anna's house, intending to find Kevin's whereabouts. Anna thought the man in front of her was a drug dealer collecting a debt, even though he was looking for Kevin. Suddenly, Lionel called Greyhound and said there was a boy who came to the workshop to take the van. After that, Grey immediately left Kevin's house. Panda went straight into the house to release the bonds on Anna and Kevin's grandmother. Arriving at the workshop, Greyhound told Lionel to leave while closing the gate. This time, Grey was going to teach Kevin a very bad lesson. Without further ado, Greyhound immediately beat Kevin. Greyhound didn't care about his notebook anymore. He immediately threw the notebook away. When Kevin was pressed and about to be killed, the Pantera appeared and immediately hit Greyhound on the head from behind until the man was unconscious. After that, Pantera scolded Kevin because the young man stole the robbery plan from the gangsters who were already famous in their city. Suddenly, Greyhound woke up. He immediately threw a shot at Pantera, but the shot missed because Pantera managed to dodge in time. Then the man fired back at Greyhound and hit him right in the head until Greyhound died on the spot. They realized the problem would get bigger, especially because Greyhound's phone rings when his father calls. Pantera tried to calm Kevin down, then told the young man to take the van. Genesis, on the other hand, continued to refuse to go with Ignacio. It was at this moment that Kevin appeared and Genesis immediately went with him, ignoring Ignacio, who could only curse in annoyance. Even though she knew Kevin was going to be a robber, Genesis was still determined to follow his adventure. As proof of her dedication to Kevin, Genesis gave him an intimate kiss right on his lips. Meanwhile, Pantera contacted Amador, Greyhound's father, to inform him that he was kidnapping his son. So Amador was forced to cancel the robbery plan for the sake of his son's safety, because that was the condition Pantera wanted. Kevin brought Genesis to the base as she was about to join them. After all the preparations on the appointed day, the group of budding robbers hopped into a van and headed to the Chilean International Airport. They were anxious when they had to pass through airport security, but since the data they had prepared from the Greyhound records matched perfectly, they were allowed to enter. Next, Kevin had to enter the code he remembered in the notebook to get into hangar number 18. Using masks and complete weaponry, this group of robbers tried to break into the door leading to hangar number 19. But their actions were soon discovered by security guards who watched their movements from the CCTV room. The police were called, and within 3 minutes the robbers had to complete their mission. In the first step, they would hold the guards of the money car captive. Then they opened the boxcar and realized that it was carrying a huge pile of money. They guessed that the amount of money in the car was more than 6 million pesos. They all quickly moved the pile of money into a trolley before the airport security guards ganged up on them. The airport security guards were quite clever. They stealthily entered fencing 19, then shot right at the panda. Kevin screamed. He was so shocked to see his best friend get shot. In the third episode, the scene opens with the robbers and airport security guards pointing guns at each other. Kevin secretly cried when he saw Panda's body lying helpless on the floor, whereas previously they planned to become rich people together. Suddenly, an airport officer named Franco appeared who immediately hit the airport officer woman. It turns out that Franco is Ricardo's colleague who already knows this robbery plan. In other words, he is one of the accomplices of the Greyhound gangster members. But Franco still doesn't know that the robbery was taken over by Kevin's team, the Baby Bandito. Suddenly, Panda woke up. Panda was cancelled dead because the bullet only hit the bulletproof vest that had been prepared before they acted. After the officer who threatened their lives was taken down, they quickly loaded the money into the van. But just as they were about to run away, the car had a problem and broke down. So they had to push the car before another airport security officer caught them. After much effort, the car managed to start. But on the other side, the airport security guards also started chasing them. Now they must be able to drive the car while avoiding pursuit and gunfire from the police. During the shootout, Mystica was shot in the arm. When they were getting pressed, they threw a mine so that the police car was stuck and could not chase them anymore. When their plan succeeded, everyone in the car cheered with satisfied laughter. They didn't expect to get away from the police that much. At the next stop, they swapped the white van for a yellow one. After that, they burned all the masks, weapons, and all the evidence in the white van. After arriving at the base, they all came together to calculate the loot equally. They all laughed contentedly in a huge rain of money. Perhaps they didn't realize that their actions would be a big problem for them in the future. The whole city was in an uproar when it heard the news that there had been a major robbery at Chile's international airport. Prosecutors who had seen the scene were of the opinion that this robbery was carried out by a team of professionals. After the interview, the prosecutor talked to the police chief, Rozo, that the money carried by the car was 6 times larger due to the festival day. Prosecutor Fiscal believes that an informant leaked the information to the robbers. She suggested that a thorough investigation should be carried out on all airport employees, from track records to criminal records and the usual places they buy breakfast. Franco cautiously contacted Anton about the robbery, thinking that Greyhound was with him to tell him about the robbery. The gangster boss, Amador, suspected that another group of gangsters had taken over his robbery plan, and that they had kidnapped his son. But since they were amateurs, he was sure that the robbers would be detected while spending the money. On an abandoned hill near Pantera's uncle and aunt's house, the robbers buried most of the money. The team made a deal not to reveal the location to anyone, including digging it up until it was safe. Pantera reminded them not to spend the money because their activities should not be conspicuous. Mystica invited them all to hold hands as a symbol of the agreement to protect each other and protect the money until the right time. That day, Lionel confessed to Anton that night he left Gray with a young man. In the morning, everything was clean, only Greyhound's notebook he found. After making sure no one knew, Anton immediately shot Lionel to death on the spot. Elsewhere, a man saw the news about the robbery at Santiago Airport that reached 6 billion pesos. CCTV footage of the robbery was published to the media. A bag full of money was kept by Mystica on the floor of her headquarters as supplies. It turned out that the mysterious man was Mystica's boyfriend named Enzo. He saw the exact same face mask used by the robbers at Mystica's base. When they went to Mystica, the girl told Enzo to pack his things. Kevin is accompanied by Genesis, and Panthera invites Anna to pack because they are being hunted by the police. Anna was surprised that Kevin was her son, the robber who was going viral. At the same time, Marco the drug dealer came to collect money. So there was an action of pointing guns at each other. Then Pantera gave him a bundle of money, on the condition that Marco keep their location a secret. Panda also returned home with a bag full of money, some of which he would give to his father. The next day, Pantera secretly entered Marco's house with Kevin's bag and skateboard. Anton immediately detected the movement from the tracking device on Greyhound's cell phone. Anton went straight to the house and called Greyhound's cell phone. The phone rang from inside a bag containing a pile of money. Anton immediately suspects that whoever is in the house is the robber who kidnapped Greyhound and defrauded them. So when Marco, the drug dealer, showed up, Anton shot him dead on the spot. Anton also shot dead 3 of Marco's followers, who happened to be in the house. The simple house also witnessed Anton's cruel behavior. After that, Anton left the house with the money and Greyhound's cell phone. It didn't take long for Amandor to find his son dead in a car parked on the side of the road. Amandor felt the loss of his son, so he immediately assigned Anton to hunt down the perpetrators who had killed Greyhound. Meanwhile, at the hideout, Pantera saw Kevin getting a message from Genesis while the young man was sleeping. Feeling that Kevin and Genesis' relationship endangered the team, Pantera immediately left the hideout and threw away Kevin's cell phone. That night, under the dark sky, Genesis went to the hill and took the money without the knowledge of the rest of the team. So Genesis was the first person to betray the team's promise. In the fourth episode, Franco, who was caught by the police, was undergoing interrogation. Anton told what happened to him during the robbery. He lied about being threatened and then beaten despite kneeling and crying. But the prosecutor did not believe him because the CCTV footage did not show what Franco said. After being pressed, Franco also admitted that he was approached by several people who bribed him, but when the robbery occurred, they were not the same people. Franco didn't recognize the robbery gang at all. Suddenly, the lights in the police station went out, a woman sneaked in. Then when the lights came back on, they found Franco dead and covered in blood. Anna stopped Kevin from leaving the safe house. Kevin kept on going, asking his mother to give him the key to the house. As Anna refused to give him the key, Kevin persuaded his grandmother, and it turned out that the key was hidden in a medicine container. Kevin reunited with Genesis, but he was surprised because Genesis took their share of the money. Genesis argued that the money was for their expenses to go far and hide. Kevin refused because he could not leave his mother and grandmother, including endangering Panda and others. According to Genesis, they were not betrayed, just hiding in the right and normal way. Once it was safe out there, Kevin could bring his family. Will Kevin agree to his girlfriend's plan? While Panda starts to get close to a girl who likes him too. Finally, following Genesis' plan, Kevin sends some money to his mother. Meanwhile, at the office, the police are struggling to identify the woman who allegedly took Franco's life. The Vulture is now stitching up the wounds on Gray's body before the father buries his son. The gangster boss feels like he's lost his fangs. Realizing something is not right, Natalia, Amador's daughter, wants to know what happened to her brother, but her father ignores her. Amador had already instructed Herring to investigate the matter. Before the funeral, Amador took the time to deliver his son's coffin. Afterwards, he ordered Anton to hunt down the perpetrators who had taken his son's life. Amador also gave an important message to a young man in a private room. The young man turns out to be Amador's grandson, Natalia, and Anton's biological son. From here, we can find out that Anton is not only a loyal subordinate, but also Amador's son-in-law. As things got worse, Pantera lost Kevin. He searched Anna's house and was informed that Kevin had left. Anton is persistent in his search for Kevin, and his team even goes to a bar close to their housing complex. At the bar, Anton pulls out a sketchboard which catches the attention of Panda Dad. Because he believed that the middle-aged man in front of him knew the owner of the sketchboard, Anton immediately pulled out a gun to threaten him and told him to talk. Panda, who was sitting in front of the house, saw Kevin driving by with Genesis. He immediately followed their car until it stopped somewhere. That's where Panda knew Kevin was going to get his passport. At the same time, Anton was also walking towards Kevin's house. Genesis immediately sounded the horn when she realized danger was heading their way. Before Kevin and Genesis left, Panda was furious. He tried to express his disappointment in Kevin for intending to leave him. Before Kevin could answer, Anton broke down the door and they ran away, hiding on the roof until it was safe. At the police station, the prosecutor asked all police personnel to keep a tight watch, especially at the airport, because she believed the perpetrators would run out of the country. As the prosecutor suspected, Kevin and Genesis were already at the airport, but they had prepared everything to pass the inspection. They hid the huge amount of money inside Genesis' body until she looked like a pregnant woman. First, they had to go through passport control. Kevin looked very tense when the officer asked him where he was going. Kevin tried to be calm while answering that he was going to Italy. At home, Panda is very disappointed. He thought Kevin and Genesis were the real traitors, so he reported them to the Pantera. Meanwhile, at this time, Mystica just woke up after that night spent a hot time with her lover. But Mystica saw her money scattered on the floor. She was sure her boyfriend had stolen several bundles of money. Panda felt their situation was getting tense, so he wrapped up the money and hid it. Genesis and Kevin are also feeling very tense because this time, Genesis has to pass through a detector machine. As Genesis passed, the machine beeped loudly, alerting the officers. But after Genesis' necklace was removed, they both could breathe a sigh of relief as they managed to pass through the entire airport's strict security system and get into the plane. Long story short, Kevin and Genesis managed to live comfortably in Italy. They both had fun, enjoyed a life of luxury, and used the money from the robbery. All of their vacation activities were uploaded on social media, making Panda even more jealous. Anna also saw her son's post, but Pantera prevented her from contacting Kevin for her safety. To calm Anna's heart, Pantera promised to ensure Kevin's safety out there. Meanwhile, Mystica Taika was still sitting at the base with an upset face. She felt very betrayed by her lover who had stolen the money she had hidden under the floor. Meanwhile, the police managed to find new facts about the murder of Lionel, the owner of a stolen car spare parts workshop that was related to the most phenomenal robbery of the century. It turns out that Brozo managed to find CCTV footage showing a young man with a sketchboard buying steel scissors that were used to cut the airport gate. Coming to the skater's place, Brozo hoped to get another clue. Now, a mysterious man is looking at Kevin and Genesis' social media. While shopping for fancy clothes, Kevin and Genesis meet a couple who claim to be from Chile as well. They invite Kevin to a party. At this time, Angelo confessed to Kevin as a tourism entrepreneur, while Kevin claimed to own a car and motorcycle repair shop, as well as being a gigolo. The next day, Kevin showed Genesis his mother's social media status, because Genesis' mother sent many posts looking for her daughter, Genesis. At that moment, Genesis called her mother and asked her to delete the posts. Because now Genesis was doing well, she also gave the reason for breaking up with Kevin. Not to be outdone by his best friend, Panda takes Nydia to a fancy restaurant. Panda wants to take her away with a bag full of money, just like Kevin did, but Nydia doesn't believe him until Panda gets angry. Panda's implacable behavior attracts the attention of all the restaurant patrons. It turns out that Anton and his wife are also eating at the restaurant. Anton remembers seeing a picture of Kevin with the young man in front of him. Realizing there was danger, Panda left her bag to Nydia. Then he left, followed by Anton. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a pimp reported Enzo to a mysterious figure because Enzo had been spending his money at the nightclub for 3 days straight, while renting a lot of hot chicks. Right after that, Mystica managed to find Enzo and immediately taught him a lesson. After Mystica left, Herring and some people came to arrest Enzo. Outside the building, Mystica saw Enzo being taken away by some mysterious people in a hearse. After running for a long time, Panda came to Pantera's house for help. When they were about to leave, Anton suddenly shot at them. Pantera told Panda to run away first, while Pantera intended to steal a car, but Anton fired first and then dragged him. Panda went to Mystica. She tells her what happened to Pantera and Kevin's departure with Genesis. Then Panda told the tragedy of the murder that occurred to Greyhound, the son of Jengter, before the robbery. Mystica was disappointed because she only found out now, so she kicked Panda out. Pantera was dragged to the slaughterhouse, where the Amador was already holding Enzo. Not knowing Enzo, Pantera claimed not to be part of the robbery gang. At gunpoint, Enzo confessed that he had gotten the money from Mystica, who lived in a warehouse. The gang immediately went to Mystica's house. One of the gang members killed Mystica with a knife, but Herring managed to paralyze Mystica with an electric gun. Mystica was captured and taken to the Amador gangster headquarters. The police start to find new clues about the glamorous life of a young skater named Kevin in Italy with his girlfriend Genesis. Panda is angry because Nydia took his money. It turns out that after taking a little money from the bag, Nydia reported it to the police. Meanwhile, Genesis took a pregnancy test. She was worried that she suddenly tested positive for pregnancy due to continuing to play with Kevin. After that, the movie continued to episode 6. After seeing Kevin and Genesis' intimate posts on social media, the prosecutor and police met with Genesis' family to show them the posts. But Genesis' parents were convinced that their daughter was being kidnapped and her mind was being manipulated by Kevin. The law enforcement authorities saw no such indication when they saw the happiness on Genesis' face. Instead, they believed Genesis was part of the viral robbery team. Finally, Genesis' parents said that they did not believe their son was involved in the robbery, so they did not want to say anything more until they were accompanied by a lawyer. The next morning, Panda planned to meet Nydia and pick up the bag of money he had given the girl. But he saw the suspicious attitude of the people around Nydia. So Panda pretended to fix a shoelace, then ran away from there. A police chase ensued. Genesis and Kevin's relationship began to deteriorate after her test results revealed she was pregnant. Suddenly, a group of kidnappers took Genesis away without Kevin's knowledge. It was unclear who the culprits were, as they were wearing face coverings. Genesis was taken to a location. The perpetrators already knew Genesis and Kevin were airport robbers who were being hunted by the Chilean police. Kevin was shocked when he saw a photo of Genesis tied up. The kidnappers threatened to harm Genesis unless Kevin handed over all the stolen money. Kevin has no other choice but to collect all his money to freedom Genesis. Brozo came to Panda's father's house to look for his son. Brozo said that Panda was suspected of being involved in a robbery case. Panda's father could not believe that his innocent son was involved in a crime. Claiming to hate the police, the man did not want to respond to Brozo's request. When Panda returned home, the father immediately closed the shop and interrogated his son. But Panda still refused to answer. If it was true that Panda had been a robber, his father wanted to celebrate. Not long after, Panda returned home with an expensive drink for his father. As it turned out, Panda had mixed the drink with drugs. So the father died on the spot. Forced to open her mouth, Pantera saw firsthand when the vulture shot Enzo dead. Seeing her lover dead, Mystica expressed her anger without caring about others around her. Mystica happened to see a meat hanger. When it would be finished off, she and Pantera fought back sadistically. Pantera's leg was shot, but fortunately they won. Before escaping, there was a shootout with Anton, who was knocked down with hot lead. Wounded, Anton entered the factory to shoot Herring dead to cover up his personal secret. Anton returned to his home for medical treatment. At a location, Kevin met Genesis kidnappers. After being given a warning shot, Kevin gave them all the money from the robbery, but he didn't see Genesis being taken by them. It turned out to be Angelo, who he met with Genesis. It turned out that Genesis had been released, but in a messy condition. Regretting the momentary luxury that ended in sadness and suffering, Genesis contacted her mother again. But her mother said, if Genesis wanted to escape prosecution, she had to cooperate with the police. Arriving at a safe location, Mystica helped Pantera to remove the bullet from inside her leg. It was at this moment that it was revealed that Kevin was Pantera's biological son. Then they both went to the hill to get the money in the hiding place. But they were even more surprised because all the money had been taken by someone else. Who is the perpetrator? Mystica is sure it's the bad boy, Kevin or Panda. After his condition improved, Anton received a warning from his father-in-law to never think of betraying him. Amador knew Anton had previously destroyed Greyhound's laptop to retrieve the hard drive. The police found Panda's father's body inside his house. The investigation process was carried out, especially fingerprints from a drink bottle found at the scene. From robbery to kidnapping and murder cases haunted this band of robbers. Panda secretly caught Nydia while walking alone. In a different location, Kevin was happy to see that Genesis was okay, but suddenly Kevin was caught by Interpol officers. The news of the baby Bandito's arrest immediately went viral. It has now been confirmed that the value of the robbery reached $7 million, but until now the police have not found where the rest of the money is. While watching the news, Amador now knew the person who had robbed him of his robbery plans was just a young boy. From Italy, Kevin was extradited to Chile. Kevin's arrival was immediately greeted by dozens of reporters and news media. According to the original story, this robbery case shocked the world because the amount of money stolen was fantastic. Especially now that it is known that the brain of this robbery turned out to be just a boy who is still considered a baby in the criminal world. When she saw her son return to Chile under police arrest, as a mother, Anna could only cry silently. While undergoing interrogation with the prosecutor and the police, Kevin was shown a videotape stating that Genesis was forced by Kevin to participate in the criminal act. In the video, Genesis also said that Kevin was the one who forced her to go to Italy. After that, the prosecutor asked Kevin who were the members of Kevin's team in carrying out the big plan. And where did they hide the rest of the money? Mystica was hiding in a bar when Kevin was caught. Meanwhile, Panda hid in a warehouse made of used cars. Meanwhile, Pantera chose to hide by working as a part-time worker. Since all of his accomplices have not been caught for a long time, Kevin is threatened with being held accountable for all of his mistakes alone. Kevin is threatened with decades of imprisonment. If he was lucky, Kevin would be out of jail by the time the child Genesis had conceived graduated from high school. Under pressure from the police, Kevin finally confessed that he had stolen the robbery plans from an Amadorian gangster. A few months later, Genesis' belly was already very large. There was a look of regret on Genesis' face when she saw the news of Kevin's arrest. Meanwhile, in prison, Kevin became the butt of jokes from the other inmates. He was nicknamed Baby Bandito. However, Kevin was still lucky because he was placed in the same cell as Pedro. His father was considered the senior in the prison, so Kevin didn't get any worse bullying. Pedro reminded Kevin that, in fact, all the money from Kevin's crimes was gone. Only the shoes were proof of Kevin's momentary success. It was at this moment that Kevin felt guilty because he was the one who betrayed Pantera and the rest of the team first. One day, Mystica followed Anna, who was going to visit Kevin in prison. Arriving at the prison, Anna embraced her son's body with great sadness. It was at this moment that Kevin apologized to his mother and confessed that he didn't have any money to hire a lawyer, especially now that Genesis had left him. As a mother, Anna thought about this matter seriously. She was determined to free Kevin at all costs. Finally, the police learned that Kevin had gotten the information about the robbery from the gang led by Amador. But they can't be rash because Amador manages to hide his crimes tightly by paying taxes. Amador is even willing to sponsor junior soccer in the city. In this chaotic situation, Pablo breaks into his grandfather's base and wants to take part in the business. Meanwhile, the next day, Anton realized he was being followed by Brozo. When he saw Anton getting out of the car, Brozo followed him out of the car. Previously, Brozo had sent his last location to the police. Brozo continued to follow Anton until he entered a public bathhouse. At that place, Anton approached Brozo. He showed strange signs of interest. It turns out that Anton is a man who likes the same sex, so Brozo had to act sexually attracted to Anton. In other places, Genesis went to the prison to see Kevin. When they meet again after a long time, Kevin openly shows his disappointment that Genesis has reported him to the police. But Genesis explains that she was forced to do that because she didn't want to give birth in prison. Now Kevin understood Genesis' wishes and could not blame the mother of his child. It was at this time that Kevin learned that he would be allowed out of prison when Genesis gave birth. Of course, on the condition that Kevin behaves well while in prison. Somewhere Brozo, who had just woken up, was surprised to see Anton sitting down while wearing his police badge. Before he could respond, Anton shot him mercilessly. Fortunately, the police entered and immediately arrested Anton. After that, the fiscal prosecutor showed a video containing a sex scene between Anton and Greyhound in the past. If she did not want to be dragged to court, Natalie was asked to cooperate with the prosecutor's office. While visiting her husband, Natalie was angry to see Anton's face. She took out a flash disk containing Anton's criminal record and even wanted to kill Anton with her own hands. The police on guard at the scene immediately stopped Natalie and took Anton to a prison cell. The movie gets even more interesting when Anton goes to the same prison as Kevin. Even though Kevin is already enjoying and doing well in that place, Anton's appearance can create new problems for him. Before that, Pedro came to Anton and warned him not to bother Kevin, because if Anton dares to make trouble for Kevin, then he will see the anger of a father. After warning Anton, Pedro took the opportunity to give Kevin a small knife, so that his son could defend himself when Anton bothered him. The next morning, when Kevin opened his eyes, he saw that his father was lifeless. Kevin's father died in prison under strange circumstances. Now Kevin is alone in the cold prison, under the watchful gaze of the other inmates. As he walks down the hallway, Kevin is furious to see Anton's face, but he still tries to restrain himself so as not to make trouble in prison because Genesis is about to give birth. At the hospital, Genesis began to feel the pain of pre-birth opening. Just as Kevin is upset and about to cause trouble with Anton, Kevin is informed that Genesis is about to give birth to their baby. So with a tight escort, Kevin was escorted to the hospital to meet Genesis. Unexpectedly, Mystica disguised herself as a nurse. Before Kevin entered the birthing room, Mystica asked the police officers to remove the handcuffs on Kevin's hands, but the police refused to do so. So Mystica had no choice but to send Kevin to the maternity ward. Finally, Kevin saw his little daughter being born safely from behind the door. Kevin was very moved, welcoming the birth of his daughter. After that, Kevin was immediately taken away by the police. In the hospital hallway, Kevin suddenly pushed two policemen who were holding him. Then he jumped out of the building through the glass window on his side. This incident went viral again. When he saw the news of Kevin's escape, Pantera immediately left his workplace. This final episode opens with Kevin being prepared by his father before entering high school. Suddenly, the police break into their house and catch his father. Kevin, who is still very young, can only stand, silent in his place, watching his father's departure. From then on, Kevin and Panda became friends. Because they both came from poor families, Kevin promised a simple dream of boarding a plane together with Panda. Then they ate a piece of bread together on the roof of a used car. Remembering that moment made Kevin walk to the location of the used car. But having just arrived, he was shocked to see a panda pointing a gun at him. Panda's innocent face turns sadistic with the support of his short hair. But in reality, Panda was just joking. Then he used iron-cutting pliers to remove the cuffs on Kevin's hands. Then they hug as a sign of being one again. At the same time, the prosecutor comes to the hospital and pressures Genesis to tell him where Kevin is. Anna, who was about to visit her granddaughter, immediately prevented the prosecutor from interrogating Genesis, who was still in pain after giving birth a few minutes ago. Even so, Prosecutor Fiscal still threatens to put them in jail if they are proven to be involved in Kevin's escape. In another place, Pablo was seriously listening to his grandfather's instructions to hunt down Kevin. Since he would one day take over his grandfather's business, Pablo thought of participating in the effort to catch Kevin. On a used car, Kevin and Panda sit together. Kevin apologizes to Panda for leaving the team. Panda forgives Kevin because he doesn't want to bring up the past. Then Panda gives Kevin 2 bundles of money. At this moment, Kevin asks what Panda will do with the money. As a joke, Kevin asked if Panda would take the rest of the money. Moments later, from the monitoring room, Panda saw Kevin leaving their hideout with a serious face. Kevin invited Genesis to meet after leaving a message with a nurse. Genesis was very happy to see Kevin in good condition. Then Kevin invited Genesis to run away, disappearing from the city after borrowing money from the panda. Kevin believes the money is with Panda, so he will borrow a few million to run away with Genesis and her child. For the sake of her love and their child, Genesis agrees. Will Kevin's plan work? Especially now that the fiscal prosecutor is watching them. The next day, Anna was surprised that Pantera came to see her. They hugged immediately due to the fact that they had a secret relationship in the past, so Kevin was born. Without the two of them realizing it, there is someone watching them not far from Anna's house. Suddenly, Mystica appeared. She wants to invite Pantera to find Kevin and take their share of the money. Although she doesn't know where Kevin is hiding, Anna has a feeling where Kevin is hiding. Kevin returns to the hideout. Panda welcomes him by giving him a bottle of water. Then he shows Kevin the stuffed panda that will be a gift for Kevin's child. The panda is even willing to give Kevin and his son money to pay for their escape. Suddenly, Pablo appeared and casually approached the two of them. Panda introduces Pablo as a gaming buddy. While getting acquainted with Pablo, Kevin feels that something is wrong. When Kevin leaves, Pablo's evil nature is revealed. Panda sends a message to Natalie as Kevin. Panda said he was holding Pablo in his hiding place. Natalie immediately reported the matter to Amador, so Amador mobilized the entire army to storm Kevin's hideout. At the hospital, Genesis started packing her things while waiting for Kevin to come pick her up. Kevin couldn't waste any more time. He asked Panda to give him the money because he just wanted to run away and hide. Panda immediately showed Kevin a trunk full of bags filled with money. But suddenly Anna, Pantera, and Mystica came to the place. Mystica immediately rummaged through the bag of money, but she was shocked to realize it was all just sheets of paper. Mystica accused Kevin of deceiving her because by then Panda was already hiding from everyone. The situation became even more heated as Amador and his gang invaded the place. Everyone immediately went into hiding. Kevin was convinced that Pablo, Panda's new friend, had caused the problem. In order to protect everyone, Pantera came out of hiding and said casually that he was the one who had killed Greyhound. Amador tries to calm down and asks Pantera to hand over Pablo. Seeing that someone was about to take the bags of money, Pablo immediately blew up the bags with the remote he had prepared beforehand. There was an immediate shootout between them. Pantera managed to shoot Amador, while the rest of the gangsters were confronted by Mystica. The girl vented her anger on them while shooting from the top of the car. Suddenly, Pablo is shot by his own grandfather's men. Panda still tried to help Pablo by taking him away from the place. Anna is still trying to survive in the middle of the firefight while continuing to protect Kevin. Pantera, who was hit by a shot from the opposing party, finally fell, helpless again. When the atmosphere calmed down, Kevin approached Pantera's body. He immediately apologized to his biological father. After that, Kevin ran away with Mystica. Apparently, the fiscal prosecutor witnessed the bloody battle that was so heartbreaking. In the end, Kevin returned to the streets. He became a pickpocket while continuing to carry his sketchboard. As for Genesis, she had to become a single mother to raise her daughter. Panda was thrown into prison when he was convicted of killing his father. Nightmares are haunting Panda as he is put in the same prison as Anton. Mitali and Pablo become the heirs to the gangster business left by Amador, while Mystica returns to being a lone criminal. By this time, Kevin is in Rome, Italy. At the end of the movie, it's explained that the police haven't figured out who is hiding the rest of the money. With this, the movie ends.